The world as it existed tens of thousands of years ago was a place of stark contrasts. Vast expanses of land were buried beneath ice sheets that stretched for hundreds of miles, shimmering under a pale, cold sun. Forests had retreated to more temperate zones, leaving tundra and frozen plains where only the hardiest plants and animals could survive. The air was sharp and biting, carrying a relentless chill that could penetrate even the thickest layers of primitive clothing. For the earliest humans, stepping into this frozen world was an act of courage and necessity, a daily confrontation with forces far beyond their control. Each morning, as the sun slowly climbed above the horizon, it revealed a landscape both beautiful and merciless. Crystalline frost covering the ground, skeletal trees stripped of leaves, and distant mountains veiled in perpetual snow. This was an era where survival demanded constant vigilance. The Ice Age was not merely a season, but a prolonged test of endurance and adaptability. Prehistoric humans had to navigate this frozen wilderness with a combination of instinct, observation, and learned behavior. Every decision carried weight. The choice of where to make camp, how to track prey, which routes offered safety, and which might lead to peril. Rivers and lakes were often frozen solid. Yet beneath the ice, aquatic life continued, providing potential sustenance for those brave enough to exploit it. The landscape itself was both a provider and a threat, capable of sustaining life while also promising death through blizzards, avalanches, or sudden drops in temperature. Ice Age winters were long, merciless, and unforgiving. Temperatures could drop well below what modern humans experience, often plunging into dangerous extremes that could freeze exposed skin in minutes. Storms could appear without warning, sweeping across plains with icy gusts strong enough to knock down even the hardiest trees. Snow could accumulate in thick, suffocating layers, obscuring familiar paths and landmarks, forcing humans to rely on memory and intuition. The psychological toll of this environment was immense. Darkness dominated much of the day in higher latitudes, leaving only short windows of weak sunlight. Fear was a constant companion, but so too was awe, the kind of awe inspired by towering glaciers, frozen rivers glittering under moonlight, and the quiet, haunting beauty of a world suspended in ice. Yet within this harshness, humans found ways to adapt. Clothing made from animal hides provided the first real protection against the cold, while rudimentary shelters offered respite from storms. Humans learned to track animals, anticipate their seasonal movements, and identify edible plants that survive the frost. These adaptations were not static. They evolved over generations, shaped by trial and error, observation and necessity. Each winter was both a challenge and a teacher, revealing new methods of survival while punishing mistakes with deadly consequences. It was an ongoing dialogue between human ingenuity and nature's relentless forces. The Ice Age was also a time of ecological diversity, even within the frozen expanses. Woolly mammoths roamed the plains, their massive bodies insulated against the cold by thick fur, while herds of reindeer traversed the tundra in predictable seasonal migrations. Predators, from cave lions to dire wolves, stalked these lands, always on the lookout for vulnerable prey. For early humans, understanding this balance between predator and prey, opportunity and danger, was essential. Each hunt required careful planning, stealth, and coordination. Misjudging the movement of a herd or the behavior of a predator could mean the difference between a meal and starvation, life and death. This intricate web of life demanded attentiveness, intelligence, and a deep connection to the natural world. Human presence, though small in scale, began to leave traces upon this frozen stage. Footprints, discarded tools, and the remnants of fires indicated a persistent effort to survive and adapt. Fires flickered against cave walls or within simple shelters, providing warmth, protection, and a focal point for social interaction. These tiny pockets of light and heat were beacons of life in a vast, cold wilderness. Around these fires, humans could rest, strategize, and share knowledge, a critical element for enduring the harsh months ahead. The act of gathering together, observing, and learning collectively became as vital as the physical tools they carried or the animals they hunted. Entering the Ice Age was, in essence, entering a crucible. It was a time that tested every aspect of human existence: strength, intelligence, resilience, and adaptability. The frozen dawn symbolized not just the start of each day, but the beginning of a constant negotiation with the elements. Fear and fascination existed side by side, as humans confronted both the dangers of their environment and the raw beauty that surrounded them. Survival was uncertain, but every day that passed without catastrophe reinforced the human capacity to endure. From this frozen world emerged the foundations of culture, technology, and social cooperation that would define human evolution. The Ice Age was not merely a backdrop. It was the proving ground for humanity itself, shaping both body and mind in ways that continue to echo through time. In the frozen expanses of the Ice Age, human beings were both fragile and formidable, sculpted by the unforgiving environment yet remarkably adaptable. The harsh climate and scarcity of resources demanded more than strength alone. Intelligence, social cooperation, and innovation became essential for survival. The people of this era were diverse, ranging from the robust Neanderthals of Europe and Western Asia to the anatomically modern Homo sapiens who gradually spread across Eurasia. Though often depicted as primitive, these early humans possessed a deep understanding of their surroundings, honed over generations of observing wildlife, weather patterns, and the shifting landscape of ice and snow. Their bodies, behaviors, and cultures reflected a delicate balance between resilience and vulnerability, a constant negotiation between life and death. Physically, Ice Age humans were adapted to the extremes they faced. Neanderthals, for instance, had shorter, stockier limbs and broad torsos, physiological traits that conserved heat and made them well-suited to colder climates. Their facial features, such as prominent brow ridges and large noses, may have helped regulate airflow and retain warmth in the frigid air. Homo sapiens, though generally leaner, developed other survival advantages: endurance, agility, and sophisticated tools. Both groups shared remarkable cognitive abilities, capable of planning complex hunts, creating symbolic art, and transmitting knowledge across generations. These adaptations were not merely biological. They were behavioral, cultural, and technological, demonstrating that survival required the integration of mind, body, and society. Social structure played a crucial role in endurance. Humans were never solitary hunters in these extreme environments. Survival depended on cooperation. Small groups or clans often consisted of extended families and a network of allies. Within these groups, tasks were divided according to skill and strength. While some members specialized in hunting or tracking, others focused on gathering, maintaining fire, or crafting tools. Children were taught survival skills from a young age, and elders acted as repositories of experience and knowledge. This structure ensured not only the acquisition of resources, but also emotional and psychological support, which became just as vital as physical sustenance during long, harsh winters. Living and thriving depended on maintaining trust, communication, and a shared sense of purpose within a group. Cultural intelligence manifested in early clothing, jewelry, and personal adornment. Animal hides were carefully selected and stitched together to create garments capable of retaining warmth while allowing mobility. Layering, insulation, and even the design of shoes or moccasins were thoughtfully executed to survive freezing temperatures. Ornamentation, beads, pendants, and carved decorations reflected identity, status, and group affiliation, hinting at a sense of pride and psychological resilience even in the most hostile environments. Such artifacts reveal a species that was not only surviving, but also expressing self-awareness, creativity, and social complexity. In essence, these humans were crafting not just survival strategies, but also the first hints of culture and individuality. Cognition and problem-solving skills were tested daily. Hunting large ice age mammals, such as mammoths or bison, required intricate planning, knowledge of animal behavior, and precise coordination. Food storage, fire management, and shelter construction demanded foresight and strategic thinking. Even minor mistakes, misjudging weather, miscalculating a hunting route, or underestimating predator behavior, could result in injury, starvation, or death. In response, humans developed observational skills and memory, learning from both the successes and failures of their own actions and those of others. This accumulation of knowledge across generations laid the foundation for early traditions, social rules, and an emerging sense of shared history. Psychologically, living in such a severe environment shaped human perception and resilience. Constant exposure to cold, hunger, and danger created heightened alertness, fear management, and emotional endurance. Yet humans also exhibited curiosity, play, and social bonding, essential for maintaining mental health under persistent stress. Art, storytelling, and ritual practices may have emerged as mechanisms to cope with anxiety and uncertainty, as well as to transmit critical survival knowledge. In this way, the mind became a tool as crucial as any weapon or shelter. Intelligence was survival, and survival reinforced intelligence. Interactions between different human groups also influenced adaptation. While competition for resources existed, evidence suggests periods of cooperation and cultural exchange. Tools, techniques, and even artistic motifs were shared across regions, enhancing survival prospects and creating networks of communication. This dynamic illustrates that Ice Age humans were not isolated individuals, but participants in a broader web of relationships, constantly negotiating alliances and rivalries. The blending of knowledge from multiple groups may have accelerated innovation, particularly in tool-making, hunting strategies, and environmental adaptation. Ultimately, the people of the Ice Age were defined by their adaptability. They were physically equipped for the cold, socially organized for survival, and mentally prepared to navigate a world where every day was a negotiation with the elements. They exemplified resilience and creativity, demonstrating that intelligence and cooperation were as essential as muscle or weaponry. Facing immense odds, they forged communities, developed cultural practices, and honed skills that would carry humanity forward. Their faces, captured in fossils, cave art, and archaeological remains, tell stories not only of struggle, but of triumph. The triumph of life, ingenuity, and the human spirit in the most inhospitable of times. Through understanding who these people were, their bodies, minds, and societies, we gain insight into the roots of human resilience. These early humans were survivors, innovators, and thinkers, navigating frozen plains with tools in hand and knowledge in mind. They remind us that survival is never purely physical. It is a combination of adaptation, intelligence, social cohesion, and imagination. As we continue to explore the Ice Age, their legacy becomes evident in every innovation, every story, and every spark of human ingenuity that has echoed through millennia. Surviving the Ice Age was as much a battle against hunger as it was against the cold. Food scarcity defined life during the long, harsh winters, where plants were buried under snow and many animals migrated or hibernated. Every bite carried a story of strategy, observation, and risk. Ice Age humans had to develop an intimate understanding of their environment, learning not only where food could be found, but when, how, and in what quantities. Hunger was never a distant concern. It was immediate, pressing, and often life-threatening. In such a landscape, ingenuity became as essential as physical strength, and every meal demanded foresight and skill. The diet of Ice Age humans was varied, adaptive, and highly seasonal. During milder months, plant-based foods such as berries, roots, and edible tubers were abundant. But winter forced reliance on animals, whose scarcity and danger made every hunt a high-stakes endeavor. Meat was not only a source of calories, but also fat, essential for energy and warmth. Early humans learned to track herd movements, recognize patterns in animal behavior, and exploit frozen rivers or snow-covered plains to ambush prey. Hunting large mammals, such as reindeer, bison, and even mammoths, required careful planning and cooperation, with small mistakes potentially resulting in failure or injury. The balance between risk and reward shaped human survival strategies, fostering the development of tools, traps, and coordinated hunting techniques. Foraging was equally crucial, especially for micronutrients and supplementary sustenance. Ice Age humans became expert observers of a natural world, identifying the few plants that could survive sub-zero temperatures and the hidden caches of seeds or nuts. Even frozen berries, bark, or lichens could provide essential vitamins and calories when prepared correctly. Some roots were boiled or roasted to extract more nutrients, while certain frozen plant foods required meticulous processing to become digestible. This knowledge was passed orally from generation to generation, forming the earliest networks of environmental intelligence. Humans learned not just to survive, but to predict and manipulate their surroundings, turning scarcity into opportunity. The human relationship with food was also a social affair. Sharing meat or gathered plants reinforced social bonds, ensured fairness, and distributed risk across the group. When hunting a large animal, such as a mammoth, the entire group benefited from the collective effort, and the resulting meals could sustain a community for days or weeks. This communal approach helped mitigate the dangers of winter scarcity and emphasize cooperation over individual gain. Eating was never merely nutritional. It was a ritual of trust, collaboration, and survival strategy. The act of distributing, storing, and consuming food reinforced societal hierarchies, knowledge transmission, and group cohesion. Food preservation was a critical skill. Ice Age humans discovered natural refrigeration in the frozen terrain, allowing them to store meat, fish, and plant materials for extended periods. Smoking, drying, and burying food under snow were techniques that enabled groups to survive lean periods. These practices required foresight and planning, often determining which clans thrived and which succumbed to famine. Storing food safely also reduced waste and minimized the risk of attracting predators, highlighting the intersection of nutrition, security, and ingenuity. The careful balance between consumption and conservation was a lesson in delayed gratification, shaped by the unforgiving climate. Caloric intake was a matter of survival strategy. Cold weather hunting demanded extraordinary energy, and the metabolic requirements of humans in sub-zero conditions were immense. Failure to obtain sufficient calories could lead to hypothermia, frostbite, and death, even in the presence of shelter and clothing. Fat from animals was especially prized for its energy density, and cooking methods evolved to maximize caloric absorption. Humans discovered that roasted meat, marrow extraction, and rendered fat not only provided nourishment, but also contributed to warmth and vitality. The search for food thus became an intricate dance between skill, environment, and bodily needs, with each meal a vital contribution to life itself. Hunting strategies during the Ice Age reflected careful observation and acute understanding of prey. Humans learned to read tracks in snow, anticipate migration patterns, and exploit environmental features such as cliffs, rivers, and valleys to trap animals. Weapons such as spears, atlatls, and stone-tipped arrows were optimized for the size, strength, and behavior of the targeted species. Coordination and timing were essential. A single misstep could scare away the herd or provoke an injury. This combination of intellect, physical skill, and teamwork underlined the complexity of survival in an environment that demanded both courage and careful calculation. The psychological dimension of winter hunger was profound. Scarcity generated stress, anxiety, and fear, yet humans also displayed remarkable resilience and creativity in response. Rituals, storytelling, and the shared act of foraging or hunting helped alleviate tension and reinforce group identity. Celebrations of successful hunts, sharing of rare food, and communal feasts likely had psychological as well as nutritional benefits, strengthening social bonds and morale. Hunger shaped not only the body but the mind, reinforcing the importance of cooperation, planning, and cultural continuity in the harshest conditions. Even in scarcity, Ice Age humans demonstrated foresight. They anticipated lean months, stored surplus food, and developed techniques to extract maximum utility from every resource. Knowledge of seasonal cycles, animal behavior, and plant biology became vital survival tools. These strategies reflected a combination of trial and error, inherited wisdom, and observational skill. Through hunger and scarcity, humans cultivated intelligence, adaptability, and resilience, laying the foundation for cultural evolution and technological innovation. Ultimately, winter hunger was both a test and a teacher. It forced humans to sharpen their senses, deepen their understanding of the natural world, and develop strategies that balanced risk and reward. It fostered social cohesion, encouraged innovation, and reinforced the intricate connections between humans and their environment. In this frozen, challenging landscape, food was more than sustenance. It was survival, knowledge, and culture distilled into every bite. The Ice Age diet tells a story of ingenuity, perseverance, and the unyielding drive to endure, shaping the very essence of human identity. Hunting was the lifeblood of Ice Age survival. In a frozen world where plants were scarce and winters harsh, humans relied on the successful pursuit of animals not only for sustenance but for warmth, clothing, and tools. Every hunt carried an element of risk, and every decision could mean the difference between survival and death. The contrast between the immense power of the prey and the vulnerability of the human hunter defined daily existence. Large animals such as mammoths, bison, and reindeer provided high-calorie meat and valuable hides, but they were formidable adversaries, capable of injuring or killing even the most experienced hunter. Predators, including wolves and cave lions, added a layer of danger, requiring humans to remain alert, strategic, and cooperative at all times. The process of hunting large Ice Age mammals demanded meticulous planning and observation. Humans had to track herds across frozen plains, interpret footprints in the snow, and anticipate migration patterns over weeks or even months. Knowledge of animal behavior was critical. Recognizing the signs of aggression, mating rituals, and feeding habits allowed humans to predict movements and identify the optimal moment to strike. Ambush strategies were common, often utilizing natural terrain features such as cliffs, rivers, or narrow valleys to channel animals into traps. Hunting was rarely solitary. It required coordinated group effort, the careful positioning of hunters, and the timing of attacks to overwhelm prey safely and efficiently. This combination of intelligence, physical skill, and social cooperation was the cornerstone of survival in an unforgiving landscape. Weapons and tools reflected the ingenuity of Ice Age humans. Spears, stone-tipped arrows, atlatls, and wooden clubs were tailored to the size and behavior of specific prey. Sharpened stones or bone fragments enhanced lethality, while projectiles allowed hunters to maintain distance from dangerous animals. Group strategies amplified these tools' effectiveness. Teams would drive herds toward concealed hunters or into prepared traps, exploiting the animals' instincts against them. Fire was sometimes used strategically to startle or guide prey, while defensive measures were always in place to protect hunters from injury. This blending of material culture, strategy, and natural observation showcases the complexity of early human intelligence in the face of life-threatening challenges. Hunting mammoths represented the pinnacle of danger and reward. These massive creatures were not only difficult to kill, but also required coordinated effort to process and transport the carcass. A successful mammoth hunt could provide enough meat to sustain a group for weeks and hides for clothing, shelter, and tools. Yet the risks were staggering. A single misstep could result in trampling, goring, or exposure during prolonged battles. Humans mitigated these risks through planning, patience, and collaboration. Observing herd behavior over time, identifying weak or isolated individuals, and synchronizing group movements were essential tactics. The act of hunting these giants was as much a test of endurance and strategy as it was of bravery and strength. Reindeer and smaller prey also played a critical role in survival. While less dangerous than mammoths, they were vital for daily sustenance, providing both meat and hides. Humans tracked seasonal migrations, using knowledge of geography, weather, and herd behavior to intercept animals efficiently. Traps, snares, and coordinated drives allowed hunters to maximize their catch while minimizing risk. These smaller hunts were frequent and required continual attention, demonstrating the constant interplay between risk management, resource acquisition, and survival strategy. The contrast between the immense power of a mammoth and the agility of a reindeer highlights the adaptability required to hunt across diverse species and environments. Predators were both competition and threat. Wolves, cave lions, and hyenas competed with humans for prey, often attempting to steal kills or ambush isolated hunters. Humans learned to anticipate predator behavior, setting up early warning systems and using fire, weapons, and group positioning to defend themselves. Cooperation was essential. Humans relied on vigilance, signals, and the distribution of tasks to ensure no individual became vulnerable. The presence of predators added constant tension to hunting expeditions, reinforcing the stakes of every successful kill. Fear and respect for these animals shaped hunting techniques, risk assessment, and even early beliefs or rituals associated with hunting success. The nutritional importance of these hunts cannot be overstated. Meat provided essential proteins and fats, critical for energy and warmth during extreme cold. Bones were transformed into tools, hides into clothing and shelter, and sinew into cordage. A single hunt could supply a wide array of resources, each element contributing to the survival of the group. The act of hunting thus extended beyond immediate sustenance. It was central to the creation of technology, shelter, and community cohesion. Humans learned to extract maximum value from every prey, turning every hunting expedition into a multifaceted survival exercise. Hunting also had profound social and cultural dimensions. Success elevated status within the group, reinforced trust and cooperation, and often involved rituals or celebrations to honor the hunt and the animal spirit. Knowledge of tracking, ambushing, and processing prey was taught and shared, becoming part of the collective wisdom passed through generations. This intergenerational knowledge reinforced both survival and social cohesion. Hunting was more than a physical act. It was a demonstration of intelligence, skill, and human ingenuity, a cornerstone of cultural identity in the Ice Age. The psychological demands of hunting were equally significant. Hunters needed patience, observation, and the ability to control fear in life-threatening situations. Maintaining focus for hours, navigating challenging terrain, and coordinating with others required mental resilience. Failures could be costly, teaching lessons about strategy, terrain, and animal behavior. Over time, these experiences shaped the cognitive and social development of Ice Age humans, enhancing problem-solving abilities and decision-making under pressure. Hunting thus became both a practical and psychological crucible, forging humans capable of adapting to one of the harshest environments in Earth's history. Ultimately, the hunt exemplified the delicate balance between risk and reward, strength and strategy, life and death. Ice Age humans were at once vulnerable and resourceful, facing predators, extreme weather, and formidable prey with ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. Hunting shaped their physical capabilities, social structures, and cultural evolution. It demanded intelligence, coordination, and resilience, reinforcing the connection between humans and the frozen landscapes they inhabited. Every successful hunt was not just nourishment, but survival, education, and community building, cementing the human ability to endure and thrive against extraordinary odds. In the dance between predator and prey, humans were learning the fundamental lessons of adaptation, innovation, and perseverance that would echo through millennia. In the frozen world of the Ice Age, survival depended not only on strength and courage, but also on the ability to create and use tools. Humans were fragile compared to the massive animals they hunted and the harsh conditions they faced. Yet with stone, bone, wood, and sinew, they transformed vulnerability into capability. Every tool reflected observation, trial and error, and ingenuity, turning raw materials into instruments of survival. From hunting weapons to fire-starting implements, from clothing production to shelter construction, tools were extensions of human intelligence, amplifying their ability to manipulate the environment and endure extreme cold. Stone tools formed the backbone of Ice Age technology. Flint, obsidian, and other hard rocks were carefully selected, shaped, and sharpened into knives, scrapers, and projectile points. The precision with which early humans knapped stones reveals advanced hand-eye coordination and a deep understanding of material properties. A sharp flake could cut meat, carve wood, or prepare hides, transforming raw resources into consumable food or wearable clothing. Some tools were simple, while others displayed remarkable sophistication, including multi-part implements or composite weapons combining stone, wood, and cordage. Each innovation reduced risk, saved energy, and increased efficiency, proving that human ingenuity could rival the physical challenges of the Ice Age. Bone and antler were equally essential. Hard yet malleable, these materials were transformed into awls, needles, fishhooks, and spear points. Bone tools were crucial for clothing and shelter construction, allowing humans to stitch hides together or pierce tough materials that stone alone could not manage. The versatility of bone reflected adaptive problem-solving. When stone was unavailable or insufficient, humans turned to the resources at hand. Even the marrow within bones provided critical nutrition, highlighting the dual function of resources in both sustenance and survival technology. Tools and food were intertwined, each hunt and crafting session reinforcing the interconnectedness of life in the Ice Age. Cordage and binding materials extended the functionality of tools. Sinew, plant fibers, and animal tendons were twisted or braided into strong cords, used to attach spearheads, secure shelters, or construct traps. Mastery of cordage allowed early humans to manipulate objects beyond their natural strength, enabling feats such as launching spears with atlatls, binding hides into garments, or creating nets for fish and small animals. This ingenuity transformed limitations into opportunities, turning the environment's raw materials into a versatile toolkit that amplified human effectiveness in hunting, protection, and daily life. Fire-related tools exemplified the intersection of technology and survival psychology. Early humans developed techniques for starting and maintaining fire using flint and tinder, essential for warmth, cooking, and predator deterrence. The ability to reliably produce fire distinguished humans from many other species and directly influenced survival outcomes during freezing winters. Fire also played a role in tool production, such as hardening wooden points or preparing hides. Tools for fire-making were thus not only practical but also symbolic, representing control over one of nature's most powerful forces. Mastery of fire became both a technological achievement and a psychological anchor in a world dominated by cold and danger. Shelter construction relied heavily on tools. Sharp stones, bone awls, and wooden stakes allowed humans to manipulate their environment, building windbreaks, huts, or even temporary snow structures. The design of shelters reflected both environmental knowledge and problem-solving skills, balancing insulation, structural stability, and accessibility. Tools allowed humans to adapt rapidly to changing conditions, creating safe spaces in which to rest, socialize, and process food. Every shelter embodied the marriage of observation, creativity, and practical skill, demonstrating that survival was as much about engineering the environment as enduring it. Toolmaking also facilitated social and cultural transmission. Skills were taught and shared within groups, with younger members observing elders or participating in crafting sessions. Knowledge of tool production became part of collective memory, ensuring that each generation built upon the successes and failures of the previous one. The process of learning tools fostered cooperation, communication, and social cohesion, reinforcing the notion that survival was a community effort. Tools were not just objects. They were repositories of accumulated knowledge and culture, bridging generations and linking humans to the natural world. The psychological impact of tools was profound. In a world dominated by predation, cold, and scarcity, having a reliable weapon, a warm garment, or a functional shelter provided security and confidence. Tools reduced the uncertainty of daily survival, enabling humans to exert control over their environment. This control, in turn, shaped decision-making, risk assessment, and planning. The act of crafting a tool or weapon was both a practical and mental exercise, strengthening focus, patience, and problem-solving abilities. Tools were thus essential not only for physical survival, but for the mental fortitude required to endure the Ice Age. Even the simplest tools demonstrated the capacity for foresight. Preparing a spear for the next hunt, shaping a bone needle for winter clothing, or storing flint for emergencies required anticipation, planning, and understanding of future needs. Each task reflected a combination of observation, creativity, and experiential learning. Humans were thinking not only in the present, but also in terms of survival weeks or months ahead, demonstrating a sophisticated temporal awareness. Tools bridged the gap between immediate necessity and long-term strategy, exemplifying the intersection of intelligence and environment. Ultimately, Ice Age tools were extensions of human will, turning limitation into possibility. They allowed early humans to hunt effectively, process food, construct clothing and shelters, and defend against predators. Every stone, bone, and cord represented an act of ingenuity, an attempt to impose order on a chaotic and unforgiving world. Tools enabled humans to survive extreme cold, navigate treacherous landscapes, and sustain social and cultural networks. Through them, humans reshaped the environment, amplified their abilities, and secured the means to endure. In the frozen wilderness, tools were not just objects. They were lifelines, symbols of adaptation, and tangible proof of human resilience in the face of relentless challenges. Fire was more than a tool for early humans. It was the heartbeat of survival, a source of warmth, light, and security in the relentless cold of the Ice Age. The bitter winds, sub-zero temperatures, and long winter nights made fire a lifeline. Without it, exposure could lead to frostbite or death in mere minutes. Beyond its practical applications, fire also shaped social structures, cultural practices, and psychological resilience. Around flickering flames, humans could rest, cook, create tools, and share knowledge. A small island of safety and comfort amid a vast, frozen wilderness. The mastery of fire distinguished humans from other species, providing both physical protection and a profound sense of agency in an otherwise uncontrollable environment. The first step in harnessing fire involved discovery and experimentation. Humans observed natural occurrences, lightning strikes igniting trees or volcanic activity sparking flames, and gradually learned to preserve and reproduce fire. Flint, pyrite, and tinder plants became essential tools in firemaking, allowing humans to strike, spark, and nurture flames on demand. Maintaining fire required constant attention. Embers had to be preserved, fuel gathered, and the flames shielded from wind, snow, and moisture. The act of tending a fire became a disciplined routine, demanding foresight, coordination, and skill. In this way, fire became a reflection of human intelligence and adaptability, an external manifestation of problem-solving and planning. Fire transformed daily survival in multiple ways. It provided warmth essential for enduring freezing nights, particularly when sleeping in caves or rudimentary shelters. Clothing alone was insufficient against temperatures plunging well below zero. Fire allowed humans to maintain body heat, stave off hypothermia, and create comfortable zones where physical labor, food processing, and rest could occur safely. The psychological impact of warmth cannot be overstated. A controlled flame offered reassurance, reducing stress and fear while enabling humans to focus on tasks critical to survival. Fire became a central anchor in both the practical and emotional spheres of life. Cooking was another revolutionary benefit of fire. Raw meat was not only difficult to chew and digest, but could harbor parasites and bacteria. Roasting or boiling meat improved palatability, increased caloric absorption, and preserved nutrients, essential for sustaining energy in harsh conditions. Plants that might otherwise have been indigestible or toxic could be rendered safe through heat. Fire also facilitated the extraction of marrow from bones, an energy-dense resource critical during lean winter months. Cooking transformed raw materials into edible, usable resources, multiplying the value of each hunted or gathered item. The controlled use of fire thus directly enhanced survival, health, and nutrition. Beyond food and warmth, fire was essential for protection. Predators such as wolves, cave lions, and bears posed constant threats, particularly when humans were hunting or moving between shelters. A well-maintained fire could deter animals, create safe zones, and provide early warning against approaching threats. Smoke could signal danger or communicate across distances, allowing groups to coordinate movements or alert others to hazards. Fire became a tool of both offense and defense, mediating the delicate balance between humans and the powerful fauna around them. Its presence turned vulnerability into a measure of control, giving humans an edge in a world filled with predators. Fire also became a focal point for social life and community cohesion. Humans gathered around flames to rest, plan, and socialize, exchanging knowledge and stories. This communal interaction fostered cooperation, reinforced social bonds, and enabled the transmission of survival skills across generations. From preparing tools to teaching tracking techniques, fire provided the central space where observation, experimentation, and cultural learning converged. In this sense, fire was not merely practical. It was symbolic, representing safety, knowledge, and the collective identity of the group. Around the fire, humans became more than individuals. They became a community capable of enduring extremes together. The psychological and spiritual dimensions of fire were equally profound. Its light and warmth countered the darkness and cold, instilling a sense of hope and reassurance in an otherwise threatening environment. Early humans may have attributed mystical or protective qualities to fire, perceiving it as a living entity that listened, responded, or protected. Rituals and early symbolic behavior often centered on fire, reinforcing its centrality in human experience. Fire illuminated not only the physical surroundings but also the human mind, offering a locus for contemplation, imagination, and cultural expression. In the depths of winter, fire became a bridge between the tangible world and human cognition, a partner in both survival and meaning-making. Maintaining fire required skillful planning and resource management. Wood, dry grasses, and other combustible materials had to be gathered and stored, ensuring that the flame could survive storms or prolonged cold. Ice and snow could extinguish unprotected embers, making fire maintenance a constant responsibility. This challenge reinforced forward-thinking and collaborative problem-solving. Fire was not a passive presence. It demanded respect, attentiveness, and strategy. Its successful management exemplified the combination of intelligence, labor, and cooperation that characterized human survival strategies throughout the Ice Age. Fire also expanded human influence over the environment. It enabled early humans to manipulate habitats, create warmth in otherwise uninhabitable areas, and extend active hours into the night. Nighttime became a space for work, learning, and storytelling, dramatically expanding the possibilities of human culture. Firelight illuminated caves where art and symbolic expression flourished, allowing humans to document experiences, communicate ideas, and reinforce cultural identity. In essence, fire reshaped both the physical and cognitive landscapes, turning a harsh, frozen world into a place where creativity, intelligence, and cooperation could flourish. Ultimately, fire was the heartbeat of Ice Age survival. It represented warmth in the cold, safety in the wild, sustenance from raw materials, and community amid isolation. Its presence dictated patterns of movement, sleeping arrangements, and social organization. Every ember preserved and every flame nurtured symbolized human ingenuity, foresight, and resilience. Fire transformed vulnerability into capability, fear into opportunity, and isolation into community. In the frozen wilderness, it was not merely a tool. It was a companion, a protector, a teacher, and a symbol of human mastery over one of nature's most formidable challenges. Without fire, survival was tenuous. With it, humans could endure, innovate, and shape the course of their own evolution. In the unforgiving Ice Age, shelter was more than comfort. It was survival. The bitter cold, fierce winds, and snowstorms made finding or constructing a safe haven a matter of life and death. Early humans developed a range of shelters, from natural caves to carefully constructed huts and snow dwellings, each adapted to the environment, available materials, and the specific needs of the group. Shelters provided warmth, protection from predators, and a communal space where daily life could continue despite the harsh conditions outside. They were the physical manifestation of human ingenuity, a blend of observation, experimentation, and practical problem-solving, allowing small groups to endure the harshest months of the year. Natural caves offered immediate protection and were often the first choice for early humans. They provided insulation against cold winds and offered a defensive advantage against predators. Many caves also had elevated entrances or narrow passages that could be easily monitored, limiting access for larger animals. Archaeological evidence shows that humans not only used these spaces for living, but also decorated them with art, suggesting that caves served as both practical shelters and cultural hubs. Inside, fire pits created warmth and light, allowing groups to cook, craft tools, and share stories. Caves were more than shelters. They were centers of social interaction, planning, and knowledge transmission, a refuge that balanced safety with opportunity. Where caves were unavailable, humans turned to constructing their own shelters. Huts made from wood, bones, hides, and other natural materials provided a controlled environment that could be adapted to specific needs. Frameworks were built from sturdy branches or animal bones, lashed together with sinew or plant fibers to create stable structures. Hides and skins were stretched over frames, creating insulated walls that blocked wind and retained heat. The entrances were often small and strategically placed to reduce exposure while allowing ventilation. These structures demonstrate not only technical skill, but also spatial reasoning, understanding of material properties, and foresight. They were designed to survive storms, conserve energy, and create a safe haven where the group could thrive. Snow and ice were also utilized creatively in shelter construction. In certain regions, humans built temporary snow dwellings or windbreaks, compacting snow into walls that provided insulation against extreme cold. The principles were simple yet effective. Snow is a poor conductor of heat, trapping warmth inside the shelter while resisting harsh winds. These structures could be assembled quickly, allowing groups to establish temporary camps during hunting expeditions or seasonal migrations. Snow dwellings reflect a deep understanding of the environment, demonstrating that Ice Age humans observed natural materials and experimented with their properties to meet immediate survival needs. Even in the harshest conditions, they could manipulate the landscape to create pockets of safety. Inside shelters, spatial organization was crucial. Fire placement was central to warmth and protection, often positioned to maximize heat distribution while minimizing smoke exposure. Sleeping areas were insulated with layers of leaves, moss, or animal hides, creating warmth and cushioning. Storage areas were established for food, tools, and hides, keeping critical resources safe from moisture, pests, or scavengers. Shelters were multifunctional, serving as kitchens, workshops, sleeping quarters, and social spaces. This multifunctionality demonstrates the sophisticated planning and organization required to maintain life in extreme cold. Humans were not merely surviving. They were actively shaping their immediate environment to optimize safety, comfort, and productivity. The social dimension of shelters was equally significant. Living in close quarters reinforced cooperation, communication, and shared responsibilities. Group members coordinated fire maintenance, food preparation, and tool crafting, creating an interdependent system where each individual's contribution affected the collective survival. Shelter spaces facilitated teaching, storytelling, and ritual activities, strengthening bonds and passing knowledge from one generation to the next. These communal aspects of shelter life highlight how architecture and environment influence culture, psychology, and social cohesion, creating a resilient community capable of enduring the harshest conditions. Shelter also served as a defensive measure against predators. Wolves, cave lions, and bears prowl the Ice Age landscape, posing threats to unprotected humans. Narrow entrances, elevated sleeping platforms, and barriers of stones would minimize vulnerability. Fire and vigilance complemented these physical defenses, creating a multi-layered protective strategy. The careful integration of shelter design, fire, and group behavior underscores the sophisticated problem-solving of Ice Age humans. Survival was never passive. It was the result of observation, planning, and coordinated action, all centered around a safe, functional base. Environmental adaptation influenced shelter choice and construction. In regions with heavy snowfall, shelters were reinforced and insulated, while in drier or wind-exposed areas, windbreaks and cave overhangs provided protection. Materials were selected based on availability, durability, and thermal properties. This adaptive approach demonstrates a deep ecological intelligence. Humans were not passive observers of the landscape, but active participants, manipulating resources to create stable, controlled microenvironments within a hostile world. Their ability to adapt shelter strategies to different conditions was critical to enduring the extremes of the Ice Age. Shelters were also spaces of experimentation. Humans observed the performance of different materials, tested fire placement, and refined construction techniques over seasons and generations. Successful designs were preserved, shared, and replicated, while failures informed future attempts. This iterative process of learning reflects early engineering principles and cumulative knowledge. Every shelter embodied lessons learned from previous winters, transforming experience into architecture that increased efficiency, safety, and comfort. In this sense, shelters were living records of human adaptation, innovation, and resilience. Ultimately, shelter represented the intersection of physical survival, social cohesion, and cultural development. It provided warmth in the cold, safety from predators, and space for communal activities. Shelters were tools, cultural artifacts, and psychological anchors, allowing humans to endure, learn, and thrive. Every cave, hut, or snow dwelling was a testament to human ingenuity, a carefully crafted refuge that turned vulnerability into strength. In the frozen wilderness of the Ice Age, shelter was not just a structure. It was a lifeline, a center of life, and a symbol of humanity's capacity to adapt, innovate, and persevere against overwhelming odds. Sleep was a lifeline in the frozen expanse of the Ice Age, a precious period of rest that allowed humans to conserve energy, restore the body, and prepare for the relentless challenges of survival. Long winter nights demanded more than just endurance. They required strategies to maintain warmth and safety during prolonged periods of inactivity. Without proper rest, humans would risk hypothermia, fatigue, and impaired cognitive function, leaving them vulnerable to predators and environmental hazards. Prehistoric people learned to navigate this delicate balance, creating sleeping arrangements and routines that maximized warmth, minimized risk, and fostered recovery. Sleep was survival, and the methods they developed reveal remarkable ingenuity and adaptability. Shelter and fire were central to winter sleep. Humans positioned themselves close enough to the fire for warmth, yet far enough to avoid smoke inhalation or accidental burns. Sleeping areas were insulated with layers of leaves, moss, animal hides, and fur, creating soft, thermally efficient bedding. The orientation of sleeping spaces was carefully considered. Entrances were positioned to shield inhabitants from prevailing winds, and raised platforms or depressions in the ground helped trap heat and maintain comfort. Every detail reflected observation and experimentation, demonstrating an understanding of thermal properties, airflow, and the principles of insulation. Sleep was not passive. It was an orchestrated act of environmental manipulation designed to optimize survival. Seasonal adaptation shaped sleep patterns. The extreme length of winter nights forced humans to adjust daily routines, with extended periods of darkness, encouraging longer rest cycles and energy conservation. Conversely, during shorter days, activity could be maximized to gather food, hunt, or maintain shelters. This alignment with environmental cues indicates an early form of circadian awareness, a synchronization with the natural rhythms of the Ice Age world. Sleep and wakefulness were intimately linked to survival, guiding behavior, energy expenditure, and social coordination within groups. Humans were attuned not only to temperature and resource availability, but also to the patterns of light and darkness in their environment. Group dynamics influenced sleep arrangements. Humans often slept in close proximity within shelters, huddling together for warmth and protection. This communal sleeping arrangement minimized heat loss, enhanced safety against predators, and reinforced social bonds. Physical closeness facilitated the sharing of warmth while fostering emotional security in a harsh and unpredictable environment. Trust and cooperation became vital components of sleep as individuals relied on one another to maintain vigilance, rotate night watches, and respond to emergencies. Sleep thus reinforced the social fabric of Ice Age communities, intertwining survival with human connection. Sleep was also a period for mental restoration and planning. During long winters, time spent resting provided the opportunity for reflection, strategy development, and problem solving. Hunters and gatherers could mentally rehearse routes, track animal behavior, and consider shelter improvements. Memory and learning were reinforced during rest, enabling the retention and transmission of vital survival knowledge. Dreams, imagination, and storytelling may have emerged as cognitive processes intertwined with sleep, allowing humans to explore scenarios, anticipate challenges, and share insights within a group. In this sense, rest was as much a cognitive activity as a physical one, linking survival to mental acuity. Predator awareness influenced sleep strategies. Even while resting, humans had to remain vigilant. Sleeping arrangements were designed to maximize safety. With entrances monitored, fire kept burning, and individuals positioned strategically to respond quickly to threats. Some members of the group likely took turns maintaining watch or tending the fire, ensuring that the entire group could rest without being vulnerable to sudden attacks. Sleep, therefore, was never total surrender. It was a controlled state of vulnerability managed through environmental design, social cooperation, and behavioral adaptation. The ability to rest safely in the face of danger was a testament to early human intelligence and communal organization. Environmental challenges shaped improvisation in bedding and positioning. Uneven cave floors or frozen ground required humans to adapt sleeping surfaces for comfort and insulation. Animal hides, furs, and plant materials were layered strategically, often in combination, to maximize warmth and cushioning. These arrangements were not merely functional. They reflected an understanding of materials, thermal conductivity, and ergonomics. Humans experimented with placement, layering, and configuration, refining techniques over time to ensure the most effective protection against cold and moisture. Sleep, like hunting or shelter construction, was an exercise in observation, innovation, and adaptation. Finally, winter sleep reinforced the cyclical rhythm of Ice Age life. Rest, activity, hunting, and social interaction formed a continuous loop, regulated by environmental conditions, resource availability, and human needs. Proper sleep was essential for physical health, cognitive function, and emotional resilience, influencing every aspect of daily life. Through careful attention to fire, bedding, group arrangements, and vigilance, humans maximize the restorative power of rest while minimizing the risks inherent in sleeping in a frozen wilderness. Sleep was survival in practice, a quiet yet profound demonstration of human ingenuity in harmonizing with the natural world. Ultimately, winter sleep was a complex interplay of biology, environment, and culture. It balanced vulnerability with security, rest with vigilance, and physical needs with social coordination. Humans engineered conditions that allowed them to endure extreme cold, conserve energy, and maintain readiness for daily challenges. Every night of sleep reflected centuries of accumulated knowledge, observation, and experimentation. In the depths of the Ice Age, sleep was more than a biological necessity. It was a carefully managed survival strategy, a reflection of intelligence, community, and resilience in a frozen, unforgiving world. In the merciless cold of the Ice Age, clothing was not merely decoration. It was essential for survival. Exposure to sub-zero temperatures could quickly lead to frostbite, hypothermia, and death, making the development of functional clothing a matter of life or death. Ice Age humans mastered the art of transforming animal hides and furs into protective garments, crafting layers that conserved body heat while allowing mobility. Every stitch, fur selection, and layering strategy reflected careful observation of the environment, animal behavior, and human anatomy. Clothing was a fusion of biology, engineering, and artistry, a technology-born necessity that extended human capability into one of the harshest climates on Earth. Animal hides were the foundation of Ice Age clothing. Hunters preserved the skins of large mammals such as mammoths, bison, and reindeer, tanning them to create durable, flexible materials. The process of removing fat, scraping flesh, and softening hides required skill, patience, and knowledge passed down through generations. Tanning was both practical and transformative. Raw hides, if untreated, were stiff, prone to cracking, and uncomfortable. Properly prepared hides provided insulation, resistance to wind and moisture, and longevity, making them invaluable assets for survival. The careful craftsmanship required for hide preparation underscores the sophisticated technological knowledge Ice Age humans possessed. Fur added another layer of protection, providing warmth through natural insulation. Thick, dense pelts from animals such as wolves, bears, and Arctic foxes were fashioned into coats, hoods, and boots. Fur orientation mattered. The soft underlayer trapped heat, while the coarse outer hairs repelled snow and rain. Layering multiple pelts increased insulation, and humans often combined different animal furs for optimal thermal efficiency. These garments allowed mobility and endurance in extreme cold, enabling humans to hunt, forage, and travel long distances despite harsh conditions. Clothing was thus both practical and adaptive, a technology that extended life and expanded activity in the frozen landscape. Stitching and fastening techniques reveal an intricate understanding of materials and ergonomics. Needles made from bone or antler were used to pierce hides, and sinew or plant fibers served as durable thread. Stitches were reinforced at stress points, and seams were arranged to prevent heat loss. Humans developed specialized footwear, gloves, and hoods, tailoring garments to specific body parts and environmental needs. Even the smallest details, such as fit around joints or layering for mobility, demonstrate that clothing was a thoughtful, functional engineering solution rather than a simple covering. These innovations allowed humans to maintain dexterity, warmth, and endurance simultaneously, a remarkable achievement in design under extreme conditions. Clothing also had social and symbolic dimensions. Different patterns, decorations, and adornments indicated group identity, status, or skill. Beads, pigments, and carved ornaments were sometimes incorporated into garments, suggesting that aesthetics and function were not mutually exclusive. Clothing became an extension of personal and cultural expression, reinforcing cohesion within groups while also reflecting accumulated knowledge of materials and techniques. In this sense, clothing was both a survival tool and a marker of identity, blending functionality with social significance. Adaptation was key to effective clothing. Ice Age humans observed seasonal changes, animal behavior, and local climate patterns to adjust garments accordingly. Heavier furs were reserved for the coldest months, while lighter layers allowed flexibility during milder periods. Repairs and modifications were routine, reflecting a mindset of continuous problem-solving and resource management. Humans learned to anticipate environmental challenges and respond proactively, turning clothing into a dynamic, evolving technology rather than a static artifact. This iterative approach to adaptation ensured that humans remained protected across diverse landscapes and changing conditions. Footwear exemplified the sophistication of Ice Age clothing. Bare feet on snow and ice were vulnerable to frostbite, so humans crafted insulated boots from hides, lined with fur, and sometimes reinforced with plant fibers for structure. These boots allowed hunters to traverse frozen terrain, climb slopes, and maintain stability on ice, enabling mobility critical for survival. Attention to detail, such as sealing seams and creating flexible soles, indicates a deep understanding of both material properties and biomechanics. The human ability to engineer footwear demonstrates that survival extended beyond mere warmth. It required precision, innovation, and foresight. Clothing also interacted with other survival technologies. Garments worked in concert with shelter, fire, and tools, creating a holistic system of protection. Warm clothing reduced reliance on shelter alone, while fire complemented insulation by maintaining ambient heat. Tools and clothing combined to enhance mobility, hunting efficiency, and endurance. The integration of multiple survival strategies illustrates the complexity of Ice Age adaptation, highlighting humans' ability to manipulate their environment through layered, interdependent solutions. Psychologically, clothing provided reassurance and confidence. The protective layers allowed humans to venture into exposed landscapes, hunt large animals, and endure harsh weather without constant fear. Clothing became a form of agency, a means to assert control over an environment that was otherwise overwhelmingly hostile. The sense of preparedness and safety reinforced social cohesion, enabling groups to function efficiently and maintain morale in the darkest months of winter. Survival was both physical and mental, and clothing played a central role in sustaining both. Ultimately, clothing was a triumph of observation, intelligence, and adaptability. It transformed the human body into a tool capable of surviving extremes, extended daily activity, and created a buffer between vulnerability and endurance. Every garment, stitch, and fur layer reflects knowledge passed through generations, a testament to human creativity and resourcefulness. In the Ice Age, clothing was not just protection, it was technology, culture, and psychological armor. It allowed humans to thrive in a frozen world, demonstrating that survival depended on the seamless integration of skill, intelligence, and adaptation in every aspect of daily life. In the vast, frozen expanse of the Ice Age, survival was never a solitary endeavor. Humans depended on family units and larger clans to endure the relentless cold, hunt effectively, and navigate dangerous terrain. Social bonds were essential for sharing resources, knowledge, and protection, creating an intricate web of interdependence that balanced individual needs with collective survival. In this environment, the family and clan were not just social constructs. They were practical, life-sustaining systems that ensured the transmission of skills, culture, and resilience from one generation to the next. The basic family unit often consisted of parents and children, forming the core of daily survival. Caregiving was crucial. Infants and young children were particularly vulnerable to cold, predators, and scarcity, requiring constant attention and warmth. Adults worked to gather food, maintain shelters, and craft clothing, while older children and adolescents assisted with hunting, foraging, and tool production. Each member had a role, and the division of labor reflected both physical capability and experience. Family life was thus deeply intertwined with the environment. Nurturing, teaching, and protecting the young were as critical as hunting or building shelters, ensuring that knowledge and survival skills persisted through generations. Clans extended beyond immediate families, linking multiple households into cooperative groups. These larger networks allowed for resource sharing, coordinated hunting, and mutual defense against predators and rival groups. Food, tools, and fire resources were often pooled to support members unable to provide for themselves, such as the elderly or injured. This social reciprocity reduced risk for everyone and reinforced bonds of trust, obligation, and interdependence. In the Ice Age, survival was a collective endeavor, and the success of the group depended on cooperation, shared knowledge, and coordinated effort. Individual survival without the clan was precarious. Together, humans could endure extreme cold, hunt formidable prey, and face environmental threats with greater resilience. Communication within families and clans was essential. Gestures, vocalizations, and early symbolic expressions allowed coordination during hunts, resource distribution, and shelter maintenance. Storytelling played a critical role in transmitting knowledge about animal behavior, seasonal cycles, and survival strategies. Narratives likely included cautionary tales of failed hunts, dangerous terrain, or encounters with predators, teaching lessons and reinforcing collective memory. These stories strengthened identity, preserved experience, and offered guidance for the young. Language, in its earliest forms, was intertwined with survival, embedding practical information within the fabric of social interaction. Social hierarchies and roles emerged naturally within clans. Skilled hunters, experienced elders, and knowledgeable gatherers gained respect and influence, guiding decisions about migration, hunting, and resource allocation. Leadership was often situational rather than absolute, depending on expertise and experience relevant to the immediate challenge. These social structures helped maintain order, coordinate activities, and ensure the effective use of scarce resources. The balance between individual skill and collective responsibility exemplifies how social organization evolved as a tool of survival, reinforcing cooperation while recognizing merit and experience within a group. Clans also played a key role in emotional support and psychological resilience. Life in the Ice Age was unpredictable and harsh, with constant threats from predators, weather, and scarcity. Social bonds provided comfort, reduced stress, and strengthened morale. The presence of companions during hunts, communal meals, or cold nights in shelters mitigated fear and loneliness, allowing humans to endure extreme conditions. Rituals, shared storytelling, and cooperative problem-solving further reinforced cohesion, ensuring that emotional as well as physical survival was maintained. Ice Age humans understood, intuitively, that the health of the group was inseparable from the well-being of each individual. Reproduction and child-rearing were central to the continuity of the clan. Fertility, pregnancy, and the survival of infants were critical concerns in a high-risk environment. Families developed strategies for protection, including sleeping arrangements near fire and warmth, close supervision, and group support during childbirth and infancy. These strategies reflected an understanding of vulnerability and the importance of proactive care. Survival was as much about safeguarding future generations as it was about securing immediate food and shelter, linking reproductive strategy with broader social and ecological adaptation. Conflict and cooperation existed in balance. Clans sometimes competed over hunting grounds, shelter sites, or scarce resources, but intergroup alliances could also form, facilitating trade, shared knowledge, or coordinated hunts. Social negotiation, trust building, and reciprocity were crucial for maintaining stability. Successful clans managed both internal cohesion and external relations, using diplomacy, alliance, or defense to navigate the complex social landscape of the Ice Age. These strategies highlight the sophistication of early human social intelligence, demonstrating that survival required more than physical strength. It required social acumen, empathy, and strategic thinking. Rituals and communal practices reinforce social bonds. Feasts following successful hunts, ceremonies around fire, and collective activities like tool-making or shelter construction foster cooperation and a sense of shared purpose. These practices may have included early forms of symbolic behavior, art, or music, further strengthening identity and cohesion. Participation in group rituals reinforced social norms, shared knowledge, and emotional connectivity, linking survival with culture. In this way, the family and clan were both practical and symbolic, organizing life around cooperation, knowledge transmission, and shared resilience. Ultimately, family and clan life was the cornerstone of Ice Age survival. Social bonds provided protection, facilitated resource acquisition, enabled skill transmission, and reinforced psychological stability. Humans were not isolated actors, but participants in a network of interdependence, balancing individual contributions with collective needs. These early social structures allowed humans to hunt large prey, maintain shelters, endure extreme cold, and pass knowledge to subsequent generations. The Ice Age was a crucible of human cooperation, and family and clan networks were its sustaining framework. Without these social bonds, survival would have been tenuous. With them, humans endured, innovated, and laid the foundations for complex societies. In the frozen wilderness, life was a constant negotiation between vulnerability and resilience. Families and clans transformed isolation into community, scarcity into shared abundance, and fear into collective strength. Every communal meal, shared fire, and coordinated hunt exemplified the power of cooperation, reinforcing the notion that humans thrived not merely through physical adaptation, but through the intricate web of social relationships. These bonds were survival strategies, cultural incubators, and psychological anchors, ensuring that even in the harshest winter landscapes, humanity endured. Even amidst the relentless cold and constant struggle for survival, Ice Age humans sought meaning beyond mere existence. Rituals and beliefs emerged as a way to interpret their environment, express gratitude, and exert a sense of control over unpredictable forces. Spiritual life was closely intertwined with survival, often focusing on the elements, animals, and cycles that directly affected daily life. Fire, animals, hunting success, seasonal changes, and celestial events may have been imbued with significance, forming a framework of rituals that provided structure, reassurance, and communal cohesion. In a world where life and death were precariously balanced, belief and ritual offered psychological resilience alongside practical strategies. Animal worship or symbolic reverence was central to many prehistoric rituals. Humans relied on the strength and behavior of creatures like mammoths, reindeer, and wolves, and some may have seen them as embodiments of power, wisdom, or spiritual guardians. Cave paintings, carvings, and figurines suggest that animals were honored, possibly as a means of securing hunting success or paying respect for life taken. Rituals before or after hunts likely involve symbolic gestures, chants, or offerings, reinforcing the connection between humans and the animals on which they depended. This relationship exemplifies a blend of practical survival knowledge and early spiritual consciousness. Fire played a dual role in both survival and ritual. Beyond warmth and cooking, fire was a focal point for ceremonies, storytelling, and communal gatherings. The flickering flame became a symbol of life, protection, and continuity, a beacon against the darkness and cold. Rituals around fire may have included chants, dances, or symbolic manipulations of flames and smoke to influence hunting outcomes, weather, or group fortune. Fire-centered rituals reinforced social bonds, coordinated group behavior, and provided a shared sense of purpose. It was both a practical tool and a spiritual anchor, illuminating both the physical and symbolic worlds of Ice Age humans. Seasonal cycles and celestial events likely shaped ritual practices as well. The lengthening and shortening of days, the appearance of certain stars or lunar phases, and the timing of animal migrations may have guided ceremonial activities. Early humans observed these patterns, linking them to survival strategies and integrating them into social and spiritual frameworks. Rituals may have coincided with hunting expeditions, preparation for winter, or the return of migratory herds, creating a rhythm that aligned human activity with the natural world. In this way, belief systems were not abstract but deeply rooted in environmental observation, survival needs, and communal timing. Rituals also played a role in marking life stages and social roles. Initiation ceremonies, symbolic decorations, or participation in hunting and crafting activities may have served as rites of passage, signaling the transition from childhood to adulthood, or recognizing skill and achievement. Such practices reinforced social cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and created shared identity within the clan. Humans were learning to structure social life through ritual, embedding cultural meaning into activities essential for survival. Spiritual and practical dimensions of life were intertwined, shaping both behavior and social organization. Belief in forces beyond the visible world may have influenced risk assessment and decision-making. Shamans or spiritual figures likely guided group practices, interpreting omens, directing rituals, or offering advice based on observation of animals, weather, and natural phenomena. Such figures provided psychological reassurance, helping reduce fear and uncertainty. Even if empirical knowledge drove many survival strategies, symbolic and spiritual frameworks offered comfort and structure, enhancing group morale and coordination in a perilous environment. Ritual thus became both a practical and psychological tool. Art and symbolism were essential expressions of spiritual life. Cave paintings, engraved figurines, and decorated tools suggest that humans created visual representations of animals, hunts, and abstract concepts. These creations were more than decoration. They served as ritual objects, educational tools, or spiritual intermediaries. Through art, humans externalized knowledge, fears, hopes, and beliefs, integrating the practical with the symbolic. Artistic expression also reinforced memory, teaching, and group identity, illustrating that survival in the Ice Age depended as much on mental and cultural sophistication as on physical skill. Death and mortality shaped ritual practices as well. Burial sites and grave goods indicate respect for the deceased and possibly belief in an afterlife or continuation beyond physical existence. Such rituals helped maintain social cohesion, honored experience and knowledge, and provided emotional closure. The handling of death reflects a capacity for abstraction, empathy, and symbolic thought, demonstrating that spiritual life was deeply embedded in daily survival and community values. Respect for life and continuity created continuity even in the face of a harsh, unpredictable world. Ultimately, rituals and beliefs were inseparable from survival. They structured daily life, reinforced social bonds, and provided psychological resilience in the face of extreme environmental stress. Through ceremonies, symbolic art, animal reverence, and fire rituals, humans created meaning and exerted a sense of control over a world that often felt chaotic. Spirituality and survival were intertwined, each reinforcing the other. Ice Age humans were not passive observers of their environment. They were active participants, interpreting, adapting, and responding both practically and symbolically, creating a culture that blended endurance, knowledge, and meaning. In the frozen wilderness, where life and death were ever-present companions, rituals and beliefs offered continuity, hope, and a sense of agency. They helped humans navigate danger, understand the natural world, and reinforce cohesion within clans. Spiritual life was not separate from daily survival. It was embedded in the very strategies, routines, and social structures that allowed humans to endure. Fire, Animals, celestial events, and communal practices all became part of a complex system of symbolic understanding, linking the material and the immaterial, and strengthening the capacity to survive in one of Earth's most challenging environments. The harshness of the Ice Age forced early humans to be perpetually on the move. Survival was a dynamic challenge, dictated by the availability of food, water, shelter, and resources, as well as by the seasonal rhythms of the environment. Unlike modern societies, Ice Age humans could not rely on fixed settlements. They had to follow animal herds, track migratory patterns, and adapt to landscapes that shifted dramatically with the changing seasons. Migration was not merely travel. It was a complex strategy of survival, requiring foresight, planning, cooperation, and an intimate understanding of the natural world. Animal behavior dictated much of human movement. Large herbivores such as mammoths, reindeer, and bison were primary food sources, and their seasonal migrations determined where humans would hunt and camp. Observing herd patterns, tracking footprints, and predicting routes were critical skills. Hunters needed to anticipate where prey would be in weeks or months, sometimes covering vast distances over snow, ice, and rugged terrain. The ability to synchronize human movement with animal behavior demonstrated not only acute observation, but also remarkable strategic planning. In this sense, migration was a continuous negotiation with nature, a high-stakes dance in which survival depended on reading the environment and acting accordingly. Ice Age humans used a combination of tools and knowledge to navigate landscapes. Footpaths were marked, hunting signals communicated, and temporary campsites established along predictable routes. Sleds, carrying devices, and pack animals may have assisted in transporting essential resources such as hides, tools, and fire-starting materials. Navigation relied on landmarks, celestial observation, and an intuitive sense of direction honed through experience. These journeys were physically demanding and required coordination, endurance, and problem-solving, reflecting the sophisticated interaction between humans and their environment. Seasonal migration required careful resource management. As groups moved across territories, they had to balance the immediate needs of warmth, food, and shelter with the longer-term demands of winter survival. Preserving meat, maintaining fire materials, and carrying essential tools were critical considerations. Temporary shelters had to be constructed or abandoned efficiently. Clothing had to be adapted for extended travel, and the group needed to ration energy to maintain stamina across long distances. Migration was thus a calculated strategy, blending logistics, environmental awareness, and social coordination. Every journey was a test of resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. Group cohesion during migration was essential. Traveling long distances in cold, unpredictable conditions required cooperation and trust. Leaders or experienced guides often directed routes, while younger or less experienced members learned observation and navigation skills through participation. Communication, coordination, and mutual support minimized risk and maximized efficiency. Clans moved as integrated units, balancing the pace, direction, and needs of all members. The social dimension of migration ensured that survival was a collective effort, with every individual contributing to the success of the journey. Encounters with other human groups shaped migration patterns as well. Territories were sometimes contested, and access to prime hunting grounds or shelter sites require negotiation, avoidance, or defense. Clans developed strategies for interaction, whether through cooperation, alliance, or tactical withdrawal. Intergroup encounters could result in the exchange of knowledge, trade of tools and resources, or sharing of survival techniques. Migration, therefore, was not only a response to environmental conditions, but also a navigation of complex social landscapes, requiring diplomacy, awareness, and adaptability. Environmental hazards added additional layers of challenge. Crossing frozen rivers, traversing avalanche-prone slopes, or navigating snow-covered forests demanded ingenuity and vigilance. Ice Age humans adapted by observing patterns, testing routes, and employing tools to mitigate danger. Fire, clothing, and shelter became critical supports during these journeys, while careful planning minimized exposure to extreme cold. Migration was a delicate balance between risk and reward, each movement carefully considered in terms of immediate survival and long-term resource acquisition. Success often depended on the combined intelligence, experience, and resilience of the group. Cultural and symbolic practices accompanied these journeys. Migration routes may have been marked with symbolic signs, ritual stops, or communal gatherings at known landmarks. These practices reinforced group identity, provided orientation, and strengthened social cohesion. Storytelling and oral transmission of knowledge ensured that routes, animal behavior, and survival strategies were passed down, creating a collective memory that guided future migrations. Culture and survival were intertwined, as rituals, symbols, and knowledge facilitated movement across the Ice Age landscape. Adaptation to changing landscapes was a constant requirement. Climatic shifts, glacial movement, and seasonal variation meant that yesterday's safe routes could become impassable today. Ice Age humans demonstrated remarkable flexibility, responding to unexpected obstacles, finding new resources, and recalibrating strategies on the move. Migration was iterative, learning-driven, and adaptive, combining environmental observation, social cooperation, and technical skill. The ability to adjust plans in real time was a critical determinant of survival, reflecting a deep ecological intelligence and an intimate understanding of the rhythms of the Ice Age world. Ultimately, migration was a lifeline in the Ice Age, a dynamic strategy that balanced survival, risk, and opportunity. Following herds, navigating landscapes, and coordinating group movement required an integrated set of skills: observational, cognitive, social, and physical. Every journey reflected a negotiation with both environment and fellow humans, combining foresight, endurance, and cooperation. Migration allowed humans to exploit seasonal resources, avoid scarcity, and maintain resilience in the face of unpredictable challenges. In the frozen wilderness, mobility was survival. Staying in one place without access to food, shelter, and fire was often a fatal mistake. Migration was not mere travel. It was a continuous, intelligent engagement with the world, ensuring that humans could endure, adapt, and thrive across a shifting and often hostile landscape. In the unforgiving landscape of the Ice Age, the quest for food was a matter of constant vigilance and ingenuity. Survival depended on mastering the environment, predicting animal behavior, and efficiently processing whatever resources were available. Early humans were not passive foragers. They were strategic hunters and adaptive omnivores, employing a range of tools, tactics, and communal coordination to sustain themselves through bitter winters. Food was not merely sustenance. It dictated movement, social structures, rituals, and even technological development. The mastery of hunting and dietary adaptation was a cornerstone of Ice Age survival. The primary prey species included mammoths, reindeer, bison, and smaller game like hares and birds. Each animal required distinct strategies, from stalking and ambushing to cooperative drives that funneled herds into traps or natural barriers. Hunters observed migration patterns, feeding habits, and seasonal movements, using knowledge accumulated over generations to increase efficiency and reduce risk. Success often depended on timing, patience, and precise coordination, as well as the ability to read subtle signs in the landscape, such as tracks, broken branches, or distant calls. Hunting was a high-risk, high-reward activity, demanding intelligence, endurance, and teamwork. Tools were critical to hunting success. Stone-tipped spears, bone harpoons, and wooden clubs allowed humans to target large and dangerous prey effectively. Weapons were often adapted to the environment, taking into account ice, snow, and rugged terrain. Traps and snares captured smaller game, while fishing techniques supplemented the diet in areas with rivers or lakes. Fire, too, played a role in hunting, sometimes used to drive animals or preserve meat. Tool-making was a specialized skill, and mastery over weapons directly influenced survival, highlighting the interdependence of technology and subsistence strategies. Cooperative hunting reinforced social bonds and group coordination. Large prey, such as mammoths or bison, could not be taken down by an individual. Success required precise teamwork, communication, and mutual trust. Hunters worked together to encircle, corner, or exhaust animals, employing strategies that reflected both intelligence and experience. Roles within the group were often specialized, with some individuals driving the herd, others striking or directing, and others securing the kill. Cooperation not only increased efficiency, but also strengthened the social fabric, reinforcing the idea that survival was a collective achievement. Food preservation was as important as acquisition. Winters were long, and resources could be scarce for months. Humans used drying, smoking, freezing, and storage techniques to extend the shelf life of meat and plant foods. Bones were cracked for marrow, a calorie-rich supplement critical during lean periods, and hides could be used to wrap or protect food. Ice and snow were natural refrigerators, while fires provided controlled heat for cooking and smoking. The ability to store food mitigated risk, allowed for flexibility in movement, and ensured that energy could be sustained during times when hunting was less successful. Preservation was not merely practical. It was a sophisticated adaptation to environmental unpredictability. Plant foods, though limited in winter, supplemented the diet. Roots, berries, seeds, and nuts were gathered during milder seasons and stored for later use. Humans had to distinguish edible from poisonous plants, a skill honed through observation, experimentation, and communal knowledge. The balance between plant and animal foods ensured dietary diversity, providing essential nutrients and sustaining energy levels. This combination of hunting, gathering, and preservation reflects a versatile subsistence strategy that allowed humans to endure extreme seasonal variation. Hunting also shaped technology and innovation. The need to kill large prey safely led to the development of projectile weapons, coordinated strategies, and protective clothing. Tracking required careful observation and the ability to interpret the landscape, while processing meat necessitated tools for cutting, scraping, and pounding. Ice Age humans were engineers as much as hunters, transforming natural materials into highly functional implements. The evolution of these tools reflects an intimate understanding of mechanics, materials, and human physiology, demonstrating that survival depended on cognitive as well as physical skill. Nutrition was essential for winter endurance. High-calorie foods, such as fatty meat and marrow, provided energy to maintain body heat, physical activity, and cognitive function. Carbohydrates and plant nutrients offered vitamins and minerals crucial for health and immunity. Balanced diets supported reproduction, growth, and overall resilience in a challenging environment. Humans carefully rationed resources, monitored intake, and adjusted for seasonal scarcity, illustrating a keen awareness of dietary needs and the critical link between nutrition and survival. Food and ritual were often intertwined. Successful hunts were celebrated with communal meals, reinforcing social bonds, transmitting knowledge, and possibly engaging in symbolic practices. Offerings or rituals around prey may have reflected reverence for animals, ensuring spiritual as well as practical benefits. Food became more than sustenance. It was a medium for cultural expression, teaching, and social cohesion. The act of sharing, processing, and consuming food was central to identity, survival, and the transmission of knowledge. Predator-prey dynamics also shaped hunting strategies. Humans were both predators and potential prey, navigating a landscape filled with wolves, cave lions, and bears. Risk assessment, vigilance, and defensive strategies were critical in every hunt. Hunters needed to protect themselves while securing prey, demonstrating that survival required both courage and prudence. Understanding animal behavior, habitat, and seasonal vulnerability was essential, emphasizing that hunting was a sophisticated cognitive and social endeavor, not merely a matter of physical strength. Ultimately, mastering the Ice Age menu required a combination of observation, skill, technology, and social coordination. Every hunt, gathering expedition, and preservation effort reflected human ingenuity, adaptation, and resilience. Food was the nexus of survival, shaping daily life, social structures, rituals, and technological advancement. Through hunting, humans learned patience, cooperation, and strategic thinking, transforming the act of feeding themselves into a comprehensive system of survival. In the frozen wilderness, where every calorie mattered and failure could be fatal, humans became masters of their environment, turning scarcity into sustenance, danger into opportunity, and the harshest conditions into a theater of adaptation and innovation. In the frigid expanse of the Ice Age, survival hinged not only on physical endurance, but on human ingenuity. Tools and technology were essential extensions of the human body, allowing early humans to manipulate the environment, secure food, and construct shelters. From stone blades to bone needles, each innovation reflected careful observation, experimentation, and problem-solving. Tools were not mere implements. They were survival systems, enabling humans to hunt dangerous prey, prepare food, craft clothing, and build protective shelters. Mastery of technology defined the line between life and death in a frozen, unpredictable world. Weapons were central to survival. Spears, atlatls, bows, and arrows allowed humans to hunt larger prey from safer distance, reducing the risk of injury. Stone tips were carefully shaped and sharpened, often tailored to specific animals, and hafted onto wooden shafts for optimal leverage and accuracy. The design of these weapons reflects a deep understanding of physics, materials, and animal behavior. Hunting was not a brute force activity. It was an exercise in strategy, planning, and tool optimization. Every weapon represented hours of experimentation and skill, a testament to the cognitive complexity of Ice Age humans. Beyond hunting, tools facilitated food preparation. Scrapers, knives, and grinding stones allowed humans to process meat, break bones for marrow, and prepare plant foods. Fire-enhanced tools enabled cooking, which increased digestibility and nutritional value. Utensils and cutting implements were carefully maintained, demonstrating an understanding of efficiency and durability. Even the act of tool production required foresight, knowledge of raw materials, and fine motor skills. Ice Age humans were engineers, chemists, and craftsmen all at once, translating natural resources into life-sustaining technology. Clothing and shelter depended heavily on specialized tools. Bone needles, awls, and sinew enabled humans to stitch hides into functional garments, while hammers, wedges, and digging tools assisted in constructing huts, snow dwellings, and windbreaks. Tools allowed humans to extend their physical capabilities, transforming raw materials into protective solutions. The integration of technology into daily life reflects a holistic approach to survival, where every tool was part of a broader system designed to manage cold, danger, and scarcity. Humans engineered their environment as much as they adapted to it. Tool innovation was iterative. Early humans observed the performance of implements, refined designs, and adapted techniques over generations. Failed attempts informed future improvements, creating a cumulative knowledge base. Some tools were highly specialized, optimized for particular tasks such as hide scraping, bone carving, or fish trapping. Others were multifunctional, demonstrating flexibility and resource efficiency. This process of trial, error, and refinement shows that Ice Age humans were sophisticated problem solvers, capable of abstract thinking and long-term planning. Fire and tool use were deeply intertwined. Fire provided heat for processing hides, cooking meat, and hardening wooden implements. It also enabled early humans to manipulate materials in ways that would be impossible in raw, cold conditions. Tools were used to create, maintain, and control fire, from flint to friction devices. This synergy between fire and tools exemplifies the integrated approach of early humans, who combined multiple innovations into coordinated survival strategies. Technology was not isolated. It was an interconnected web of knowledge, observation, and application. Social learning played a critical role in technological advancement. Knowledge of tool production and use was transmitted orally, through demonstration, and by direct participation. Young members of the clan learned by observation and guided practice, gradually acquiring the skills necessary for independent survival. The cumulative nature of this knowledge allowed innovations to persist across generations, creating continuity and adaptability in the face of environmental challenges. Technology was both a personal skill and a shared cultural asset, reinforcing the role of social structures in survival. Adaptation to environmental challenges spurred innovation. Ice, snow, and rugged terrain demanded modifications to existing tools and the creation of new ones. For example, bone hooks allowed fishing through frozen rivers, while insulated sleds or carriers facilitated the transport of heavy hides and meat. Tools were constantly adjusted to meet the demands of changing landscapes, illustrating a dynamic relationship between humans and their surroundings. The ability to innovate in response to immediate challenges was a hallmark of survival intelligence, showing that technological progress was closely linked to observation, experimentation, and ecological awareness. Cognitive skills, such as planning, problem-solving, and abstract thought were essential in tool use. Producing a functional spear, sewing a hide, or constructing a shelter required foresight, dexterity, and strategic thinking. Ice Age humans envisioned the end product, selected appropriate materials, and executed precise actions to achieve a functional result. These mental processes reveal that survival was not purely physical. It was profoundly intellectual. Each tool was evidence of thought applied to environment, a tangible outcome of human creativity and intelligence under extreme conditions. Finally, tools and technology shaped culture and identity. Certain implements, such as elaborately crafted weapons or decorated utensils, carried symbolic meaning, signifying skill, status, or group affiliation. Artisanship was recognized and respected, and mastery of particular techniques could enhance social standing within a clan. Tools became extensions of personal and collective identity, integrating functionality with social significance. They were not merely instruments of survival, but also expressions of ingenuity, culture, and cognitive sophistication. Ultimately, tools and technology were the lifeblood of Ice Age survival. They allowed humans to hunt effectively, prepare and store food, craft clothing, build shelters, and adapt to ever-changing landscapes. They extended human physical and cognitive capabilities, transforming natural materials into solutions for the challenges of a frozen world. Every spear, scraper, and needle was a product of observation, experimentation, and ingenuity, a testament to the intelligence, creativity, and resilience of early humans. Technology was survival, art, and culture all intertwined, a demonstration that human adaptability in the Ice Age relied as much on the mind as on the body. In the frozen expanse of the Ice Age, humans were part of a complex and often unforgiving ecosystem. Survival was not solely a matter of enduring the cold. It depended on understanding the intricate relationships between predators, prey, and the environment. Humans had to observe, anticipate, and adapt to the rhythms of the natural world, navigating a landscape teeming with both opportunity and danger. Every movement, strategy, and innovation was informed by a profound awareness of how animals, weather, and terrain interacted. In this world, humans were not at the top of a simple food chain. They were active participants in a delicate ecological balance. Predators posed constant threats. Wolves, cave lions, saber-toothed cats, and bears were formidable hunters, capable of taking down humans if unprepared. Vigilance and strategic positioning were crucial for survival. Campsites were often located near natural defenses, such as cliffs, caves, or dense forests, providing both protection and vantage points. Humans learned to recognize predator behavior, tracks, and hunting patterns, adjusting daily routines to avoid unnecessary encounters. Fire served as both deterrent and beacon, creating a boundary of safety during vulnerable moments, such as sleep or food preparation. Survival demanded respect for these apex predators and a nuanced understanding of their habits. Prey animals were equally central to human existence. Mammoths, reindeer, bison, and smaller game provided essential calories, materials for clothing, and tools derived from bones and hides. Humans observed migration routes, herd dynamics, and seasonal behavior to anticipate where prey would appear. Stealth, coordination, and timing were critical, often involving long periods of waiting, careful tracking, and cooperative hunting strategies. Success depended on understanding animal psychology as much as physical prowess. Hunters internalized these patterns over years, creating mental maps of terrain, migration, and feeding behavior that guided both daily activities and long-term survival strategies. The Ice Age environment demanded constant adaptation. Glacial advances and retreats reshaped landscapes, altering water sources, shelter locations, and the distribution of flora and fauna. Humans observed and responded to these changes, adjusting hunting strategies, migration patterns, and settlement locations. Knowledge of terrain was as important as knowledge of animals. Every slope, valley, river, and forested area had implications for survival. Environmental literacy was a form of expertise passed down across generations, linking humans intimately with the dynamics of the Ice Age ecosystem. Survival was not random. It required continuous learning and adaptation to shifting ecological realities. Humans also influenced their environment through hunting and resource use. Strategic hunting reduced pressure on prey populations, while overhunting could lead to scarcity and forced migration. The use of fire-modified landscapes, cleared pathways, and even influenced plant growth. Humans were active agents, shaping ecological dynamics through their behaviors and interventions. This interaction demonstrates that the Ice Age ecosystem was not static. Humans were part of a feedback loop, responding to and altering their surroundings in ways that ensured both immediate survival and long-term adaptability. Seasonal variation structured interactions with nature. Winters were harsh, with limited food availability, frozen rivers, and deep snow, while summers offered abundant resources, plant growth, and easier movement. Humans synchronized their activities with these cycles, planning hunts, migrations, and shelter construction according to environmental cues. Observing patterns in animal behavior, plant cycles, and weather conditions allowed humans to predict challenges and opportunities. Seasonal awareness became embedded in culture, rituals, and daily routines, integrating environmental observation with social organization and technological adaptation. Social cooperation enhanced survival within this ecosystem. Hunting dangerous prey, defending against predators, and transporting resources required coordination. Clans relied on shared knowledge, communication, and distributed roles to manage risk and maximize efficiency. Leaders or experienced hunters guided strategic decisions, while communal vigilance ensured safety during vulnerable periods. The collective intelligence of the group allowed humans to thrive in conditions that would overwhelm solitary individuals. Social cohesion was inseparable from ecological competence. Understanding nature was embedded in collective action, teaching, and cooperation. Tools and technology mediated human interaction with animals and the environment. Spears, arrows, and traps allowed safe engagement with large prey, while scrapers, knives, and fire tools enabled the processing of meat, hides, and bones. Clothing crafted from animal pelts allowed humans to endure extreme cold and venture farther into the landscape for hunting or resource gathering. Shelter construction relied on environmental materials, combining natural protection with human ingenuity. Every tool reflected an understanding of ecological relationships, translating observation into practical, adaptive strategies. Humans were problem solvers, engineers, and ecologists, translating intelligence into survival technologies. Psychological adaptation was equally critical. Constant exposure to predators, environmental hazards, and scarcity required resilience, attention, and risk assessment. Humans developed instincts and behavioral norms that minimized danger, such as maintaining fire at night, traveling in groups, and avoiding unfamiliar terrain without preparation. Fear became a functional guide, informing decision-making and reinforcing survival behaviors. Understanding and respecting the ecosystem's dangers was as important as exploiting its resources, highlighting the interplay between cognition, emotion, and environment. Cultural and symbolic interpretations of animals further shaped human interaction with nature. Cave art, figurines, and ritual objects suggest that animals were revered, feared, and incorporated into spiritual beliefs. Hunting success, predator avoidance, and environmental cycles were often contextualized within ritual or symbolic frameworks, reinforcing community cohesion and shared understanding. Humans attributed meaning to the world around them, integrating observation, survival strategy, and cultural expression into a coherent worldview. Nature was both partner and adversary, a force to be respected, understood, and celebrated. The Ice Age ecosystem was dynamic and interdependent. Humans, predators, prey, and environmental forces formed a complex web of interaction, each affecting the survival and behavior of the others. Humans relied on observation, experience, and experimentation to navigate this web, constantly refining strategies for hunting, defense, migration, and shelter. Success depended on maintaining equilibrium within this system, balancing exploitation of resources with safety, foresight, and social coordination. Ice Age humans were not passive observers. They were active, adaptive participants in an ecosystem that demanded both intelligence and humility. Ultimately, understanding animals and nature was central to Ice Age survival. Humans developed sophisticated ecological knowledge, technological innovation, social strategies, and cultural practices that allowed them to thrive in a harsh and unpredictable environment. Every decision, where to hunt, how to travel, when to rest, which materials to use, was informed by the rhythms and relationships of the natural world. Survival required a combination of observation, intelligence, cooperation, and respect for the ecosystem. In the frozen wilderness, humans were both students and agents of nature, navigating a delicate balance that sustained life, culture, and knowledge through the Ice Age. In the end, the Ice Age ecosystem was a constant teacher. Predators taught vigilance, prey taught patience, and the land itself demanded adaptability. Humans responded with observation, creativity, and social cohesion, translating environmental challenges into strategies that ensured survival and cultural continuity. Understanding the interconnectedness of animals, terrain, and climate allowed humans to transform a hostile world into a livable one. The Ice Age was not simply a period of cold and scarcity. It was a crucible in which human intelligence, cooperation, and ecological mastery were forged, shaping the trajectory of survival and adaptation for millennia to come. The story of Ice Age survival is a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability. Across frozen landscapes, harsh winters, and unpredictable ecosystems, early humans transformed vulnerability into opportunity, danger into innovation, and scarcity into strategy. Every aspect of life, from clothing and fire to social bonds, hunting techniques, and tool-making, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of both the environment and the human body. These adaptations were not isolated feats. They were interconnected systems of knowledge, culture, and survival, reflecting a holistic intelligence that allowed humans to thrive in conditions that would overwhelm most other species. Human ingenuity extended beyond mere physical survival. The development of tools, weapons, and clothing reveals advanced cognitive capabilities, including foresight, planning, and problem-solving. Early humans learned to manipulate raw materials into solutions for food preparation, shelter construction, and protection from the elements. Each innovation was carefully tested, refined, and passed down through generations, forming the foundation of cumulative knowledge. In this way, the Ice Age was both a crucible and a classroom, teaching humans to observe, experiment, and adapt in ways that would shape the trajectory of human evolution for millennia. Social cohesion was equally critical to survival. Families and clans provided not only protection and resource sharing, but also opportunities for learning, mentorship, and collective problem-solving. Cooperation during hunts, migration, and shelter construction reinforced trust and interdependence, ensuring that no individual faced the Ice Age alone. Rituals, shared storytelling, and communal practices strengthened identity, transmitted cultural knowledge, and provided psychological support. The combination of social intelligence, cultural continuity, and practical skill allowed humans to maintain resilience in a landscape defined by extremes, demonstrating that survival was as much a social as a physical achievement. Interaction with the natural world was another cornerstone of Ice Age life. Humans observed animal behavior, tracked migrations, and interpreted environmental cues to make strategic decisions about movement, hunting, and resource allocation. Predators, prey, and seasonal changes shaped daily routines and long-term planning, requiring both vigilance and foresight. Humans became active participants in a complex ecosystem, learning not only to respond to environmental challenges, but also to anticipate and influence them. This intimate understanding of nature fostered ecological intelligence, ensuring that humans could navigate a landscape of perpetual change with skill and adaptability. Ritual and belief systems provided psychological stability and cultural continuity. Fire-centered ceremonies, animal reverence, and symbolic practices gave structure to a world of uncertainty. Rituals reinforced social cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and allowed humans to interpret environmental forces in ways that enhanced both morale and strategic understanding. Spiritual life was not separate from survival. It was a means of contextualizing danger, celebrating success, and maintaining group identity. Through ritual and symbolism, humans infused their existence with meaning, bridging the gap between material necessity and cultural expression. The legacy of Ice Age technology is equally profound. Tools, weapons, and construction techniques reveal a sophisticated interplay between observation, experimentation, and cognitive skill. Humans were engineers, problem solvers, and inventors, adapting innovations to new challenges and environments. Fire, clothing, and specialized implements extended human capabilities, allowing exploration, hunting, and migration across diverse and hostile landscapes. The cumulative knowledge of these technologies was preserved and shared, forming the foundation for later human civilizations. Innovation was not occasional. It was constant, systematic, and vital to survival. Food mastery was another defining aspect of Ice Age life. Hunting strategies, preservation techniques, and knowledge of edible plants enabled humans to navigate extreme scarcity. Nutritional awareness, resource management, and cooperative consumption ensured that energy demands were met even during the harshest winters. Food was central to survival, but it also shaped culture, rituals, and social hierarchy. The integration of nutrition, technology, and cooperation illustrates the comprehensive nature of human adaptation, in which every action reinforced resilience, survival, and cultural identity. Migration exemplified the dynamic intelligence of Ice Age humans. Following herds, navigating changing landscapes, and anticipating seasonal shifts required planning, coordination, and observational skill. Movement was not random, but strategic, balancing the immediate needs of warmth and sustenance with the long-term requirements of survival. Social structures facilitated this mobility, ensuring that knowledge of routes, hazards, and resources was preserved and transmitted. Migration was a testament to human foresight and adaptability, demonstrating that survival was as much about strategic planning as it was about endurance or strength. Clothing and shelter exemplify the interplay of technology, observation, and culture. Layered furs, tailored garments, and insulated shelters allowed humans to endure extreme cold, venture farther from resources, and engage in complex activities during winter months. Every stitch, layer, and structural innovation reflects careful attention to materials, ergonomics, and environmental conditions. Clothing and shelter were extensions of human ingenuity, providing both physical protection and psychological confidence. They illustrate the holistic nature of Ice Age adaptation, in which innovation, observation, and culture were inseparable from survival. The Ice Age also shaped human cognition and social behavior. Risk assessment, strategic thinking, and problem-solving were daily necessities. Humans observed animal behavior, environmental patterns, and social dynamics to inform decisions. Cooperation, communication, and social learning were integral to skill transmission and survival. Cognitive resilience was reinforced by culture, ritual, and shared knowledge, creating a feedback loop in which mental, social, and practical skills enhanced one another. The Ice Age thus fostered both physical and intellectual evolution, preparing humans for increasingly complex challenges in the millennia to come. Ultimately, the legacy of Ice Age survival is visible in every aspect of human life today. Modern humans inherit not only the genetic adaptations that supported endurance and resilience, but also the cultural, technological, and social innovations of our ancestors. Fire management, tool making, cooperative hunting, clothing design, migration strategies, and social organization all have roots in this formative period. The Ice Age was a proving ground, a time when intelligence, observation, and social cohesion were tested against some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Humanity emerged stronger, smarter, and more adaptable as a result. The Ice Age teaches a timeless lesson. Survival is never solely physical. It is a combination of ingenuity, social cohesion, environmental understanding, and psychological resilience. Humans endure by observing, learning, cooperating, and innovating, transforming challenges into solutions and danger into opportunity. The frozen landscapes of prehistory were not merely obstacles. They were classrooms, shaping the skills, knowledge, and culture that would carry humanity forward. Every innovation, ritual, hunt, and journey reflects the profound adaptability that defines our species. In conclusion, the legacy of Ice Age survival is both tangible and symbolic. It is tangible in the tools, clothing, shelters, and ecological knowledge passed down through generations. It is symbolic in the human capacity for resilience, creativity, and cooperation under extreme adversity. Ice Age humans mastered fire, weathered winters, hunted colossal prey, and navigated complex ecosystems. They created culture, transmitted knowledge, and forged social bonds that allowed them to thrive where survival seemed improbable. Their legacy is a reminder that human ingenuity, observation, and collaboration are timeless tools for navigating any environment, no matter how harsh.